Hey everyone, my name's Alexandra and I'm a watercolor artist. Today's going to be a little bit different than usual. The last few videos I've shown you guys have been tutorials, but I recently posted a video on my Instagram of me painting a watercolor egg for Easter, and there was so much response, so I wanted to kind of just take you guys through the process so that you guys can paint with me today. So you don't need too much for this. If you guys want to paint along, then grab some paints, paintbrushes, and some eggs. Let's get started. Alright, so what I have done for this video to prep is I've hollowed out some eggs. If you guys are doing this at home, what you can do is take either needle, pin, something pointy, poked a hole in the top, and then I did one in the bottom as well. I had to make it bigger so that I can blow the yolk out. And then after, you want to make sure that you rinse out your egg so that there's no yolk left over inside, or egg whites. Yeah, so rinse it out and then try to let it dry completely. I still have some water dripping out of these ones, but that is okay. I'll just dry it off and we will get started. So I asked on my Instagram story what you guys wanted to see me paint, and majority of people responded that they want either leaves or flowers. So I think we're gonna do a combination of both of those today. So just to show you guys kind of what I'm gonna do, we're gonna paint a flower in the center with some leaves coming around it, and that'll be the plan for today's painting. So again, I'm just gonna do everything really loose, really natural looking. It doesn't have to be perfect. So when I had the idea to do a video painting on eggs, I decided that I would look into the history a little bit, just because I was curious. I know that a lot of painting on eggs comes from either a Russian or Ukrainian Orthodox background. My family is actually initially from a Russian Orthodox background, but they became Christians when my great-grandma was little. But it's really interesting, actually, the history behind it. It's very relevant to Christianity today as well. I was looking into it more, and I guess often during Lent they weren't allowed to eat eggs, so they would hard boil them to make them last longer. And then when it was finished, they would give them to their neighbors, just because people would often be left with eggs. So then I wanted to look more into why that became a thing specifically for Easter and what it represented. And oftentimes Russians or Ukrainians will give each other hand-painted eggs, and they would write the letters so it looks like an H and a B on it. But in Russian, that would stand for Христос воскрес, which means Christ is risen. And around Easter, they would go and they would give their neighbors eggs, and they would write that on it, and they would say it to each other. And they would respond, "Воистину воскрес," which means he is risen indeed. So they did this as a symbol of Christ on the cross dying and being raised 3 days later. So the eggs represented a symbol of new life and new birth. Yeah, so I thought it was honestly really cool. So often we just get caught up in the busyness of holidays, and with Christmas and Easter, it's gifts and Easter eggs and the Easter bunnies and all of these things. So it's kind of neat to just take a step back and actually look into the meaning of it. So I wanted to share that with you guys so that you can look at Easter and Easter eggs a little bit differently, just as a reminder of what Christ did for us on the cross, and that it is a representation of him giving us life. Yeah, so as you guys can see, I'll just catch you up a little bit on what I'm doing. I'm painting leaves on either side and a flower in the middle. Just because of the way that the watercolor works on the eggs, it often comes on a lot lighter. So we're going to do a couple layers and add some details as we go. So for these eggs, I mentioned to you guys that I hollowed them out before doing this. Another option is to use hard-boiled eggs. If you're doing that, I would suggest to paint on them with food coloring instead of watercolor, just because it can go through to the egg and you obviously don't want to be eating that, but definitely an option to do this with hard-boiled eggs. I know it can be a little bit finicky to try to hollow them out. I have broken a few eggs in the process. So now I'm just going back in and adding some more color. Just gonna add some layers, some more detail. And then another thing that I painted the first egg that I painted, I was holding it the whole time and found it was really hard to keep it steady and keep it from moving all over the place. So you guys can see that I have a glass jar here. Yeah, just to rest the egg on so that, first of all, you don't want to be touching it because you'll smear the water and the watercolor before it's dry. So this is just a good way to kind of help keep it stable. So we're just going to go in and add some details. And then I actually want mine to have a design all the way around, so we're going to add to the back. I'm just going to do a few stems. And we'll just paint in some little flowers. So the eggs that I've been painting on up until now have all been white, as you guys can see right here. But I actually often get eggs locally from someone here where I live, and they're such pretty colors, so I decided to paint on this kind of brown egg for you guys, and it's so fun. It gives it such a vintage look. I just have to get a hold of some blue eggs to give it an even more Eastery feel. The nice thing about when you hollow them out is that as long as you don't break them, you actually can keep the eggs and use them, put them in a little basket and use them as decor all year round. not all year round. You can save them for the next year. Unless you want to keep them out all year, that's fine. So again, I'm just going to go back and add some more details into these leaves. It's been really fun to just play around with different colors and different designs. You'll notice too, if you've painted with watercolor before, it's definitely a different feeling than painting on paper, just because the egg doesn't take to the watercolor the same way. But it's fun because it gives you an opportunity to do a lot of layering and add more and more details as you go, just because it doesn't naturally dry very dark on here. Oops. Alright, so I'm just going to go and add some more details into the back now. Yes, you'll notice the reason I try to keep it resting on the stand that I have here is because when I don't, I tend to hold the egg with my whole hand, and I have made some smudges in it, as you can see. So that's why it's helpful to have it resting on there. Then I find I'm not touching the sides as much with my hand. But honestly, it's okay. I don't mind how that looks. Add some little leaves in here. And I'm going to do the same to this other set of flowers here. So you'll notice when it starts out, it can look pretty messy. It doesn't look like much, but as you add more and more, it slowly just comes together. So now I'm going to add some more details to these flowers. So we're just going to go back in and add a bit more color to this main flower here. All right, so that's it. Now all I have to do is let that fully dry and we are done. What I could do after if I want to preserve it for longer is just spray it with something to seal it. Obviously right now I have to be careful with all of these because if they get wet, the watercolor will run. So that's something that you might want to consider doing if you're planning on to hang on to these for future Easters or spring. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Also, if you guys followed along and painted an Easter egg of your own, please take a picture, share it on Instagram, and tag me at Alexandra Victoria Studio. I absolutely love to see what you guys are painting, so yeah, definitely show me. Also, next week I'll be back to normal with my tutorial videos. We are going to start a series on watercolor wildflowers, which I'm so excited about. So if you haven't already, subscribe so that you don't miss it. Also, if you like what you saw, make sure to like this video. We'll see you next time.